All right, folks, welcome to Satoshi Chats, episode 9. Not sure what the title is yet, but we'll get to it. My name is Casey.
My name is Jack.
And, Jack, why don't we start with the Bitcoin price?
Yes, today is Thursday, January 7th, 2021. Current Bitcoin price 38,500, but we did see it hit 40,000 today. So
yeah, what a
all-time high day. It's not. It shouldn't be looked over.
definitely a historical day for Bitcoin as it reaches another 10K point.
This is a historical day for Bitcoin.
Yeah, especially recently. I mean, the prices have just been off the charts. But yeah, we've got an interesting topic for you folks today.
Something a little different.
Right. So, as you might be seeing right now, I'll probably be editing video of what we're talking about into this podcast. Also, we had a celebratory sort of event where we rented a car for Bitcoin 30,000. And yeah, Jack, tell us what kind of car did we rent?
We decided I was headed down home for the weekend, and me and Casey spontaneously decided to rent a fast vehicle, and we ended up choosing a Mercedes SL63 2009.
Yeah, it was quite nice.
It was quite nice. It's a little bit different from our current vehicles. I have a 2008 Honda Pilot with over 160,000 miles, and Casey has what year is it?
It's a 2011 Honda Civic.
Yes, so we have standard vehicles, as one would say, quite luxurious compared to the rest of the world, but I'd say, quite standard vehicles.
Yeah, regular North American vehicles for sure. And so to get behind the wheel of one of these, powerful machines was quite the experience in itself. Neither me nor Jack, I think, have ever really touched something this fast, and it was certainly an experience to behold.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yeah, and so you might be thinking, wow, what a frivolous expense. And it was, folks. Don't get us wrong. We didn't think of the Satoshis. We didn't stack because of this experience. But I think, and Jack, I think, agrees with me on this, there was a certain level of, like, entertainment and understanding that experience gave us that really couldn't be, like, bought any other way. Right? Like, is that a good way to phrase it?
It's, yeah, I mean, I would... I might not do it every day, but it was definitely worth the, we paid probably in total around $300 for the day, including gas and other things. But yeah, it was quite the experience.
Yeah, and so there was obviously never any illegal speeding going on or anything like that, and driving the vehicle, to describe it, was relatively tame as far as fast cars go, just because it was a big heavy car. It was a convertible, but it had a big naturally aspirated 6.3 liter V8 with about 500 horsepower, so it's got enough kick to bring it, but it's definitely not light, and it's I think Jay Leno described it as sort of like a fat lady who knows how to do the waltz or something like that. It's a very interesting vehicle in that it kind of just sways around with the curves and stuff, and it really was an exciting experience to feel such a weighty vehicle as far as those go.
Yeah, and I think great car, totally worth the money for the day, but I think something that we've learned and that we've discussed in the vehicle was that we would never purchase a vehicle like that actually to own it, you know? We would never own a vehicle of such standard unless we were extremely wealthy.
Right, like thinking about all the costs associated with owning such a thing, and it's not an appreciating asset. It's not like I guess you could consider real estate like one of those appreciating assets that still needs maintenance, but a car needs maintenance and it's depreciating. Unless it's a very rare car, and this car was not rare enough to be an appreciating asset. So yeah, it's really difficult for us as Bitcoiners and hodlers to kind of conceive of this like massive wealth sink, unless of course it's such a insignificant portion of your wealth that you wouldn't even think about it. But until that time, which you got to be really wealthy to be playing around with toys that are $150,000. So
Right.
To think of it like an asset, at least it's really hard to find like a proper car that you would want to hold for a long time, right?
Right. I would definitely just purchase a brand new Honda rather than a brand new Mercedes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think like as a utilitarian type of person, like someone who looks for the utility in things, do you think like there was anything to be learned about like this serves a function in that it provides entertainment, or do you think is sort of like a superficial entertainment?
It definitely provides entertainment because it's a fast vehicle, but I mean, you could get there are cheaper cars that are as fast. So I mean, it's you're paying for the luxury, you're paying for the brand, you're paying for the whole experience, and in my opinion, it's overvalued.
Yeah. So all in all, do you think, as you said, I guess the conclusion we came to was that we wouldn't want to own one of these unless we were extremely wealthy. But what is like wealthy? Like at what point would we consider that? Not like necessarily a number, but I think like when someone has enough assets to maintain their wealth in an upward trajectory, that owning like a car that depreciates wouldn't bring your net wealth in a downward trajectory, then you could do it, right?
Yeah, I'd want to be making enough money comfortably, passively, before I purchase such a thing.
Yeah, passive is key, because working to gain assets like that are depreciating is basically slavery, right?
Right. Like, why would you own such a car and have a full-time job? It just doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, and I guess it's difficult for me to even like look at it from like a different perspective type of view, because the other perspective is enslaving yourself for a depreciating asset for a consumerist type of thing, like
Right.
Like I could consider the other side, but the other side just sounds so obnoxiously dumb to me, I don't even want to.
Right. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, and so I think that's really like what was like kind of the slap in the face about the whole experience, was that like as much as we kind of played around with it and got to enjoy it, at the end of the day someone like has to go back and like take care of this car and that sucks. Like
Right.
I feel bad for that person, because that's just
felt bad. Yeah, we did feel bad for the owner of the vehicle.
right. It's like not because we took poor care of it, we actually took really good care of it, we washed it and everything, but it's just sad that someone, they probably rent it out so they make money on it, but the actual vehicle itself is a depreciating asset. And I think cars are things of beauty. I'm a car guy myself, but in a like if you look at your life, it really is like not worth the hours of work that people enslave themselves to these cars for. It's like
Right. Yeah, I'd rather stack stack Satoshis and just know that I could buy one if I really wanted to, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
Having the freedom to go out and purchase something if I wanted to gives me it satisfies my brain that I if I really wanted to I could, but I know it's a bad idea, so I won't.
Yeah.
That itself is just as satisfying as actually owning the vehicle. Well, maybe not, but it's pretty close.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think the knowledge that you can buy certain things is funny. Just the kind of like power it holds to say no. Also, like, think about it. Like, you have the ability to go buy cars, and yet when someone chooses not to use that ability, it's like just a big fu to the consumerist system, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just it's funny how something that people like kind of like really toil away at, they work super hard for, they put everything towards that, other people can choose to just kind of be like, nah, I don't want to do that, and then their whole life is just in a different trajectory because of that.
Yeah. It's it's quite hilarious. We know someone who we won't name, but we know someone that would think the opposite of what we're currently thinking. Casey, if you want to go into more detail, I don't know how.
Like, so the Bitcoin, a long way to say it, is high time preference. The slang term would be YOLO, right? So it's just the preference to get material goods now versus giving up for a greater good later, right?
Yeah.
And like, so I think that's my blog is called The Test Tonight, right? And the reason I chose that name is because a lot of my worldview is formed by where I grew up, which is kind of like in Orange County, which is like a rich person's place filled with all these cars and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And filled with all these cars, nice cars. Everyone drives nice cars here, basically. And I think that really is like a drive on people's mind, is like the group mentality, like the herd, like what is everyone else doing? Like, you notice people in like rural areas, they all drive trucks and big cars, a lot of necessity there, but also it's kind of the thing to do, right? Whereas in, Southern California, you buy these nice little sports cars or these nice German vehicles,
Yeah, it's interesting to think, price wise aside, I'd rather have my $5,000 Honda with four-wheel drive than a 40. I mean, price wise aside, right? I mean, I'd rather have my Honda than the car that we drove.
Right. It's the utilitarian aspect of it. Yeah, it was all a very interesting experience, and it's difficult to kind of sum it up in one way, but I think if we could, it would just be to continuously stack Satoshis rather than buy cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's about the conclusion we can come with everything.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is about someone we know has a very expensive vehicle, and it's funny to think about how different our lives are compared to that person, because if I was in that person's shoes, I'd much rather have, let's say his car is worth 50 grand, I'd much rather have a $5,000 car and 45 grand in Bitcoin than a $50,000 car. But yet in that person's mind, that $50,000 car is the most important thing in the world. That's what the person needs, but when really they don't.
Yeah, it's the high time preference for the high time preference goods, you know? It's the direct result of having like cheap money, you know?
Yeah.
And when you don't have like valuable money and you don't understand why your money is valuable, because like we have an intrinsic understanding that our money is to store value, right? Which means you hold it, you don't spend it. But if your intrinsic understanding of money is to spend it, it's the opposite. It's literally the opposite view on what money is, you know? But that's what like all the modern economists teach, is that spending is what cures everything rather than saving. But you know, what a wild idea to just, you know, accumulate capital.
Yeah. Right. They say you know, spending is good, but that only works in a fiat monetary system. If it was a sound monetary system, there would be more incentive to save rather than to spend.
Yep, it's interesting how that connects all the way back down to, or it trickles all the way down to the decisions that people make along the lines of like, I'm going to work a job so that I can specifically purchase a vehicle.
Right, a luxury vehicle.
Yeah, a luxury vehicle. I think that speaks a volume too. Is like, it's not just shelling out money for like a vehicle, because it's relatively easy to acquire a working vehicle in North America. At least it's cheap, but a lot of people just cannot handle having a not expensive vehicle. They just can't. They can't seem to bear it, which is I just find that interesting.
Yeah, it's also like obviously it's like a social status thing as well, because just to pull up to a red light and just to want to know that the other person next to you, to want them to know that you're rich, like that has no value at all whatsoever. Like that, it really doesn't matter at all. I mean, what I think when I pull up to a red light and I see a somewhat luxury vehicle, nothing too crazy, but just a standard luxury vehicle, I just think, wow, that guy doesn't own any Bitcoin.
Yeah, because if they knew what Bitcoin was, they would sell their car to buy more, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's Bitcoin just changes things, it changes your view of what is important in this world. And I think about like how that would affect like people's like dynamic relationships in their life and stuff, like rather than choosing like frivolous goods and things, choosing to like save up for like important things. I think that's like, there's a lot to be said for that, like in terms of like how that will affect everyone in your life, but people would rather have inline 4-cylinder turbos with loud exhaust notes.
Four-cylinder turbo, yeah. I'd rather have that.
Yes.
$30,000 in Bitcoin.
Yeah, $30,000 in Bitcoin. So think about that, folks. Just a couple months ago, Bitcoin was worth, mine and Jack's Hondas put together, basically. And now it's worth a brand new luxury car.
Yeah, my car's probably worth about $6,000.
Yeah, so mine and yours put together, that was probably the September price of Bitcoin. And now you can purchase a brand new Tesla with it.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that that dollar is it's guaranteed to lose value. Like there's no if. It is literally guaranteed to lose value. While Bitcoin, on the other hand, it's almost inevitable for the price to go upwards.
Yeah,
so
like
it's almost like it's you just really have to put 2 plus 2 together, and it's very simple. Yet a lot of people look over it.
Yeah, like I want to know what these people think actually happens when the Federal Reserve prints out like 30+% of the money supply in one year. Like, what do they actually think will happen? You know, like, is who absorbs that? You know, some people talk about like, oh well, the dollar demand. It's like the dollar demand has nothing to do with the supply, right? It has to. The demand and supply interact for price, but the supply is the supply, and they are fucking the supply up. You know.
Yeah.
And it's just
The money that is printed, it's the fresh new money that's printed, it's going into the wrong hands, so it's making it even worse.
yeah, exactly. It's not like the airlines are gonna know what to frickin' do with it. You know, they still lay off the worker. There's so many problems, and the main issue is that there's actually someone out there issuing the money, right?
Yeah.
If there was just no one issuing the money, because the money itself issued itself, we would have no problems.
Yeah, like I truly wonder how it works. Like, is there just a computer that they just like add a zero to? Like,
So to explain it really quick, basically, the Federal Reserve, I could get this wrong, so bear with me, but the Federal Reserve buys bonds from the Treasury, and the bank account they're buying the bonds with just has no money in it. So the money that right, so yes, so when they purchase it, the money that they purchased it with is created. And then the second way is that when banks lend, when you deposit $100 at a bank and they take that $100 and they lend out 90 of it, the 90 that they lend out to another person is doubled, because they lend out 90 and then something along those lines. And basically the bank's lending money creates capital.
Exactly. And then let's say, this is very basic, but let's say, someone goes in for a loan and the bank doesn't have any money. They just they just make it.
Yeah,
like,
they just loan out more.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's
and
actually ridiculous.
Fractional reserve banking is exactly what the name is. You keep a fraction of the reserve of what you actually deposited, and then the rest is lent out. And isn't that interesting how we can just have like a financial collapse in 2008, and then the people are like, nah, banks, you can just keep doing that. You know, it's just so grinds my gears.
Yeah, it's just one day they'll figure it out.
Right. And I remember this quote. I don't remember who said it, but it was someone who said, like, one day there will be a money that takes over, that beats the US dollar, but the only way that's going to happen is through a sneaky roundabout way. And Bitcoin is sneaky and roundabout, my friends. I don't hear anyone talking about it. Do you hear anyone talking about it?
Sly roundabout?
Yeah, it's a sly roundabout way.
I think that was from the Bitcoin Standard.
Was that? Yeah, yes. The sly roundabout way quote, right? Bitcoin is sly, the sly roundabout way, folks.
It's very sly, actually.
I mean, Jack, have you heard a bit? I mean, I've heard a bit on the news about Bitcoin all-time highs, but have you heard anything like it just doesn't seem like people are grasping yet what's going on?
They really haven't. I mean, it's incredible news to us as Bitcoin holders, obviously, but I just in public or at work, I don't hear the word come up ever.
Right, where is everyone's money at?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was in my work commonplace, and one of my coworkers says, "Oh wow, Dogecoin is down 10%," and no one said anything. No one said anything at all. First off, because they have no idea what Dogecoin is, and second off, they don't give a fuck. They really don't care.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows what cryptocurrency is. No one knows what Bitcoin is. No one knows anything about this except for people who are into tech, who are into libertarian ideas or into programming, or I mean, it's a growing sector, certainly, and there's a growing audience for it. But out of the actual world population, it's such a small number. And the implications are so huge. It's such an asymmetric upside. I mean, we could just go on about how literally it's just so unknown.
Right. I mean, yeah. If you're listening to this, it's quite obvious that it's a good investment.
Yeah, I sure hope you understand by if you're on episode 9 of Satoshi Chats. I sure hope you understand by now.